My name is Greg Massey, and this is episode number 66 of The Color of Air, a podcast about the musical journey. And thank you for tuning back in for another awesome interview. My guest this week is Kim Dylla, who is the owner and operator and designer of Kylla Custom Rockwear. And if you don't know her name, you've seen her work because she has been working with metal bands and professional wrestlers for many years now. She's worked with, in the metal world, she's worked with, King Diamond, Cradle of Filth, Machine Head, Overkill, Kreator, amongst many others. In the wrestling world, she's worked with Bray Wyatt, Jericho, Randy Orton, Riott, Tamina. I mean, the list just goes on. And the reason why, she has this thriving career making stage clothes and ring clothes for these folks is because her work is amazing. And, it's visually stunning, well crafted, and, it's just truly awesome to see the success she's had and to see how far she's come. And so it was a joy to talk with her for a bit and kind of get the history and talk about how she got involved with doing metal stage gear, with doing wrestling gear, amongst all sorts of other topics. and not to discount that she's also an incredible musician too. And we discuss a lot of the different bands that she's been in, and her current and future projects. So all in all, it was a tremendous interview. I'm so lucky and honored that she agreed to come on my little podcast and generously share her time and just really be an awesome guest that I had a lot of fun talking to. So, time to introduce you to her music, and for this podcast, I'm going to focus on her band called The Burned Over, and this track is called Shadow. I just wanted to kind of just share a quick anecdote because I've always kind of struggled with for live performances in my bands. I've always struggled with having cool stage clothes. Like that's always been a concern of mine. And I remember very distinctly the Abigail tour, and I was watching it, and I'm like looking at Andy LaRocque, and I'm like, that's really cool stagewear right there. Come to find out that's what you did.
That's cool. It's actually like my favorite stagewear we ever made because I'm a huge King Diamond fan. So like it's, I mean, I like what I do, but it's even extra special when I get to work on a band that I'm actually like a fan of. And Abigail is one of my favorite albums. So just sort of like be able to envision what that should look like on stage and have Andy wear my designs was really fun and
Oh, that's
rewarding.
awesome. That's awesome. I mean, it was like, I was like, that's the kind of stuff I need to get at some point when I have the money to, and when I'm actually playing shows again. We'll see when that happens. But yeah, I was just kind of curious because like it was like after that, just seeing your name pop up with because I worked with some independent wrestling for a while, and your name came up that way with some of the designs you'd made for some of the wrestlers who worked with the company I was at, and then seeing all the metal stuff and everything. I mean, I guess what this is a long way of saying. So, what kind of came first for you? Because you seem to have been involved in a lot of different things over the last years. Like, what came first? Was it the metal, the wrestling, or the fashion?
So like here's how I got started doing all the things I do. So I was working at University of Virginia at a cultural heritage institute. I'm a computer scientist, but I made like 3D models of ancient Rome, and that was my day job. And then on the side, while doing like digital archaeology work, I played in bands. My first band was called This Means You, and we were together for like 10 years. It's sort of like melodic death metal, and we toured everywhere. And I would just talk to people we played shows with, or like talk to, the other bands. And I would always make my own stage gear for every show we played, and everyone was like, oh, that's really cool, where'd you get that? And they'd give them my name and number, and then I would take those commissions like on the side of my real job. Like I had some friends in way bigger bands like Joey Jordison from Slipknot, and he's like the same size as I am, so he would sort of like indefinitely borrow, as I put it, like jackets that I made and then wear them to things like the Grammys or the Revolver Golden Gods Awards. And then like people like Rob Flynn from Machine Head started calling me, and Machine Head, we've been working with them for like 10 years, and the Cradle of Filth guys, and Alexi Laiho from Children of Bodom, who's now no longer with us, as is
Yeah,
Joey.
yeah,
Pretty soon, like it became like I never slept because between the band, the full-time faculty job, and like 3 months worth of stagewear commissions, I was like, what would happen if I just like quit my job? And like I have health problems, like immune conditions, so I was really nervous as an American to quit my job with health insurance.
yeah.
I was like, okay, well, what, like how many jackets per month do I need to make to like pay my health insurance? And I'm gonna pay that before my mortgage, like, and
Yeah.
that answer was a reasonable amount. So I quit my job, and that was 12 years ago. And then the first few years it was only metal bands, so we did lots of big wardrobes for like Machine Head, Kreator, Arch Enemy, Cradle of Filth, like all the commercial metal bands that are touring right now. Pretty much we've dressed them all. but
Yeah.
but then I don't know. It was when I got in GWAR for a
Yep.
while. Like Dave Rocky was a really good friend of mine, and he loved my band Kung Fu Dykes. We played the barbecue and like the benefits show for like Corey's passing and stuff. And so like they thought of me when he passed because they're like apples and oranges. Let's get a girl. No one can compare to Rocky. So
Yeah.
they asked me to be in GWAR, and then I was working from the road with GWAR, and I got this call from Bray Wyatt from WWE, but like wrestlers, I don't know, you probably know this because you're working in wrestling, but like they just cold call you, like it's still like there's no text or email, just someone gets your actual number from someone and rings your phone. And we used to get like interviews from press agents at like 2 p.m. every day on the road. So I thought it was like, it's time for my phone call like interview. I need to pick up in character.
Yeah.
So I answered the phone as Vulvatron, and I was like, what do you want, you pathetic human scum, or something like that. And then and it was Bray Wyatt. He's like, Kim, your name was given to me about like making a vest. So then I started working with Bray Wyatt, and we sort of introduced the whole like post-apocalyptic style to pro wrestling. And
Yeah.
I will say that we started a trend, because after he started wearing it in like 2014, 2015, when we started making those crazy vests and jackets for him, like lots of other people started. At first I was kind of like, oh, people ripping me off. But then I was like, no, that's a compliment. Like if people want to imitate what you're doing, and then like, we kind of started a trend. So like that was neat, and it was fun working with him like up through like designing the Fiend outfit. I did like the jacket and the red pants and stuff like that for.
That's awesome.
And now Jason Baker, the guy who makes the really awesome masks that they wear, does this stuff. But it was extremely fun. But then like once I was working with Bray Wyatt, then he kept giving my name to all the rest of the WWE. So then I was working with Chris Jericho and Randy Orton and like Braun Strowman and Eric Rowan and people, and then Ruby Riott, and it just kind of snowballed.
Yeah.
With the wrestling world, and that's how that happened. That's the whole timeline of.
Wow. Well, it's funny when you say that, because so like I worked for my friend's independent wrestling company called Capital Wrestling from 2017 to 2019, and my main job was writing music, like the entrance music for people.
Oh, that's cool.
And yeah, it was a lot of fun, and my goal, and it was kind of similar. It's like, well, I'm just gonna start. I think I had the same thoughts as you. I'm like, well, how many commissions could I get a month where I could leave my stupid insurance job, because
Right.
I don't want to do insurance. I want to do music, but it never, that unfortunately never panned out for me too much. But but I know what you mean, because it's like wrestlers get this in their head, like this is the person you got to go to, like this is the restaurant. Why do all the wrestlers go to Cracker Barrel on the road? It's because
Right.
someone said you should go to Cracker Barrel. And then in Massachusetts where I am, there's the Kowloon Chinese restaurant, which all the WWE guys go to after a show. And it's like, how did that happen? It's just like someone just said, oh, these people treat us good, you should go there. And
Yeah.
so yeah, it doesn't surprise me you do a good job for Bray Wyatt, and all of a sudden it's like, well, this is who made my stuff. And that's just the way wrestlers kind of work.
It's the same thing with metal. Like I don't need to advertise. Like metal, heavy metal's a niche genre, and wrestling is a niche world, and they're very small circles of people. So I find like I treat everybody like a rock star, whether they're like in a local band or like an indie wrestling fed. Like I was a local band singer for 10 years, and I hated when people treated me like garbage or didn't take me seriously just because I hadn't had the right break yet, or whatever. And then you eventually get it, and then you remember the people that treated you like a human being, and the people that treated you like garbage and only paid attention to you because you were famous or something. And I like to spread that around. My price is the same. I don't give people like free stuff or kiss their ass if they're famous. Like everyone gets the same price. Wait in line. Like that's the thing, is I have a 3-month wait, but like
Yeah.
I mean, if I don't have a wait, it gets insane. Like sometimes WWE with the deadlines, it's like a new pay-per-view every 2 weeks. A lot of my people got released from there, and even though I kind of miss having a lot of my stuff on the big screen there, like if you have more than like 5 people that you're dressing for each pay-per-view, it's insane. Like I don't sleep, you can't go anywhere because all of a sudden you get a call. Like I'd be in Sweden. I live there half-time with my boyfriend, or like at working with one of my bands at like Wacken in Germany. And I'd be like, blank check, but like, can you get me this by like 3 days from now? And I'm like, calling the FedEx and seeing what they have at the fabric store, and like, yes, I guess, and it's exhausting. So having a few people is good.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I follow your Instagram and just see it. Yeah, I've seen like all the people you dress, both metal and wrestling, and it's amazing to me. And even seeing just recently, just put when you posted like the shirts you're making for Bobby Blitz of Overkill, and I was just like, that is so cool. And
I love Overkill too.
Yeah.
That a funny story. Speaking about like people that are in a local band or a national act, I met Bobby Blitz like, I don't know, 15 years ago when I was touring with my local band, This Means You, and we were playing in Detroit at the IROC. And I guess Overkill was playing at Harpo's or something. And for some reason, they came to our show. I don't know why, but that was cool. And then we had already played. So and it was a stressful day. Like we had a brand new van and I think we hit a deer and we had to like get the van repaired en route to the show, but made it. So I was down in the beers after. And I had drunkenly convinced Bobby Blitz to play Judas Priest covers with us after the show. So, and he was down. So like, Overkill comes to our show and then we're like playing Judas Priest covers with our gear with Overkill like after the show, and it was a blast. And they remember it too. Every time they see me, now they're like, the IROC,
Well, I have to say too, speaking of Bobby Blitz, I mean, when I was in college, I was the metal director at my college's radio station. This is, 98, I guess. And Necroshine had just come out, and one of the guys was like, hey, you want to go see Overkill? And I'd never really listened to Overkill at that point, so I'm like, sure. He's like, do you want to interview Blitz? I'm like, sure, why not? But I wasn't sure what to expect, but they let me go on the bus with him, and he was the coolest guy I think I had ever met. That like not a rock star at all, just totally down to earth. And again, like you say, he remembered me. Like I went to the New England Metal Fest a little while after that, and he saw me walking. He's like, hey, come on, hang out, come over here. And I got to watch him watching Deicide with his son from the balcony. I was like, this is the cutest, most wholesome metal moment I think I've ever seen in my life.
I feel like a lot of metal people are super wholesome and like down there. And there's like, it's such that the egotistical assholes are the minority, really. Like there are the misogynists, there are the racists, there are the ego guys, there's the divas, but like it's really like 1 in 20 or something. Like most people are just down to earth, like nerds, like and I say wrestling people are, I actually used to wrestle for like 7 years with a fed called Richmond Lucha Libre here in Virginia.
Oh, okay.
I was really terrible at it, but I had a really fun time. Like I'm not graceful or coordinated. That's not my virtue. I am like strong and I have a high like pain tolerance, and like I can roll. but and I'm really good on the mic. Like I have good character skills or promos, but like in terms of looking graceful or like not fucking up spots, like that is not, no, I didn't do a good job. So like I remember being intimidated by as I'm like a nerd, so like I'm intimidated by all these bodybuilder looking guys. I'm expecting them to be like the way that the football players were in high school or something, but they're just total nerds too. Yep. Wrestlers are total nerds. Like they're like, you want to talk about my macros, like kind of thing,
Yeah.
Like, but I say that lovingly. Like,
yeah.
It's her nerd.
And and speaking of, it's like I debated having this in the shot when I called you, but I do have 2 Fiend. I've got the Funko and the Fiend thing with your designs on. Like the Fiend was definitely one of my favorite characters in the last few years. So to see that you were responsible at least for the clothing portion of that was just like super cool.
Yeah, he called me when they were trying to change his character, and we had to talk about it because they wanted to go away from the like distressed post-apocalyptic look. He had Jason working on the mask, and then we drew up some designs, and he had this idea of sort of like a steampunk stripes with gators kind of thing, and then we came an idea with the red stripes. I had to get that fabric like custom printed. And I think that character was a huge success, and I was bummed to see they released him. That was
I know. That was not fun. That was not good.
Yeah.
And you mentioned spending half the year in Sweden, and that's the other thing I was gonna. I feel like in terms of being like an independent businesswoman, I mean, just you started the business, and now I feel like you live this really awesome, as busy as you are. I feel like I see you're always jetting off somewhere, or you're like, this is my work now at this place, and I feel like you are really inspirational, at least to me, as like, trying to get some sort of like self business off the ground or whatever. I just think you've carved out a really cool life for yourself. And
Thank you. Well, I feel like I don't know, people ask me a lot, like, how do you start your business or do what? And it's like, okay, don't just think about like what you want to do. Think about what kind of life you want to live. And for me, I'm a touring person, so I go crazy if I'm in the same place for more than 2-3 weeks. But I can really work from anywhere as long as I have a sewing machine, a fabric store, and a reliable postage. Like I don't even need a fabric store because I can get stuff shipped, but like a reliable postal system and a sewing machine. I can work from a metal festival. I can work from any country in a hotel room. So that's been really nice to be mobile, especially because like, I mean, I live in a small town in Virginia. I love it here. But if I just stayed here, I would never get any business. You don't meet metal bands like sitting at home. So it's important to go to like big metal festivals or wrestling events and stuff. I think of it like going to conferences for other industries. If you work in like air conditioning, if you're trying to sell your air conditioning unit, you got to go to those conferences and like network, or
yeah.
if you're a guitar company, you got to go to NAMM and show off your instruments. And so like, it doesn't really buy me anything to sit at home. And so when my bands are playing in my gear, I usually like to go, see that in person. That's the fun part of this job, is getting to see huge bands or wrestlers like rock your gear in a big ring or on a big stage. And then you hang backstage and just talk to people and introduce yourself, tell them what you do. And then like, if you're good at what you do and you're doing something that's needed, which like there's not a lot of people that provide wardrobe or gear, and a lot of the people that do that are like unreliable, or like I feel like I have an advantage because I'm a singer and touring musician and I was a shitty wrestler, so like I understand the difference between fashion design and functional stage gear, functional wrestling gear, and there is a difference, So,
Yeah. I was gonna, that actually brings up a good point. Like when you're designing a wrestling gear or wrestling, or I guess stage gear too, like what are the considerations in terms of the fabric? Like because like if it's a wrestler, they're gonna have to be jumping, so it has to have like some sort of breathability or whatever. Like what is it different for each person, or do you have kind of like a standard thing?
well, we tested a lot of fabrics because like I know it has to stretch. So actually for Bray Wyatt, we invented these things I like to call ring jeans. So I have a really good denim distributor in LA, and he makes all these really cool, extremely stretchy denims that usually they're used in like women's jeggings. They call them jeggings, like jean leggings. But a lot of those fabrics really wear through and you can like, tear them very easily. So I did a lot of testing to find some stretched denims that are like very flexible, but also like durable. For instance, Braun Strowman, we made him 2 pair of ring jeans at the same time. And I think he wore them like every day in the ring for like 6 years. And I was like, Jesus Christ, I really shot myself in the foot with the durability of these. It's no like Apple iPhone that I'm going to make it break in 2 years,
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I was like, at this point, I'll just give you a new pair for free because, wow, you really ran those into the ground. But there's that. So like there has to be movement and there has to be strength, and it can't be too hot. But at the same time, everyone wants to wear things like leather and metal, So I'm like, well, leather doesn't stretch in the ring. So we have to like find leather alternatives that don't suck, which is hard because almost all leather alternatives suck. And so I like to use like metallic coated spandex, kind of looks like leather. And then for stagewear, you basically stick to leather and denim, but it's sometimes like the denim gets really hot. So I like to put in panels of like breathability. And then the other thing that's hard is like, if you're putting metal spikes and hand painted things and real leather on something, you can't throw it in the washing machine and dry it, right? But they get really disgusting and smelly on stage. So it's hard to get dudes who are used to just like wearing t-shirts and jeans that throw everything in the dryer to understand like, if you do that to this, you're going to destroy it. And I cannot in good faith like fix it for free for you because
Yeah.
it's written all over and I got these tags and huge letters, hand wash only. And then if you dry clean them, they strip all the paint. But it's really easy to hand wash them on the road. I have like instructional videos. I'm like, put it in the sink of your hotel room or your truck stop or wherever the venue and do this and then hang it up overnight. Sometimes people want to get 2 sets so that one can dry.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
But like that's a struggle with washability, right? Because it has
yeah.
to be cleaned.
Well, I remember a friend of mine here. He used to wear like leather pants all the time, and I guess I forget what band it was, but some black metal band asked him if they could borrow his leather pants because I guess the guitar player was the same size. So he's like, "Can I borrow your leather pants for tour?" And he's like, "Yeah, sure, yeah." And then not knowing that they were going to be spraying goat's blood on themselves every night, and so like he said, like he came back from tour and handed him these leather pants
Oh,
coated, and he's like, "Here you go." He's like, "No, it's all right. You can you can keep them."
I did that once with Watain because they used the pig's blood on stage. And I mean, I really like the idea because it smells like death at their concert. And so you're incorporating this extra element of like being evil and dark and scary. And speaking about death, and you're making your audience like visibly uncomfortable because, it smells terrible. But I'm
Yeah,
like, oh, that's artistically, it's cool.
yeah.
And but one of their old tours, like I've known them forever, they were like, oh, Dylla, like our stage set stuff got stuck in customs or something, like, all those creepy candelabras you got in your house, like, can we borrow them? We bring them back end of tour, kind of thing. So like I have like a tiny convertible. I could drive these big like wrought iron candelabras to like Pittsburgh or wherever the tour started, hanging out of my like top down car. And I'm like, it's wrought iron, it's metal. There's no way it's gonna stink when I get it back. I don't know. I don't know how they got the smell of like dead animal into the iron, but I had to leave those things outside for like an entire season to get them the stench out. It was terrible.
I just want to jump in to say thank you for listening, and here are the ways that you can support us. Subscribe to The Color of Air on your favorite podcast app like Apple, Stitcher, Radio Public, or Spotify, and be sure to rate and review. Also, follow me on Twitch at twitch.tv/retcongreg. Join our Patreon at patreon.com/retconindustries, where we have 3 monthly subscription tiers of $1, $5, and $10. Depending on which tier you choose, you will have your name listed in the credits for every future podcast and music release, as well as access to bonus audio and video content, Bandcamp discounts, and exclusive merchandise through the Retcon Swag Club. Finally, please check out all the music up for sale at retconindustries.bandcamp.com. And now, back to the podcast. Obviously, you said, when you started kind of working solely on this, your consideration was, okay, how much do I need to do to make health insurance? And like you said, figuring out, okay, what's the kind of life I want to lead? Where, I mean, at this point, where do you see your business going? Or are you at a place where you're like, okay, this is a comfortable amount of work for me for now? Or are you always trying to grow?
So like the custom stuff is not so scalable because I have 2 sewing assistants, but I still want to design everything and I want to interact with my customers. So even if I'm giving them the actual sewing, I'm still sitting there pinning it up or leaving them diagrams or patterns, and so like there's a peak on how many orders I can take and do a good job with all of them. Also being creatively, you don't want to just make yourself a factory, or I can tell when I've been burning myself out that things are just kind of like not as creative as sometimes I are when I'm a little bit less booked. But we have a ready to wear line now. I've partnered with Alistair, who runs a company called Veriless, and they make really cool like Ren Fair kind of looking stuff like kilts and boots, and he has some factories that he works with that started manufacturing some of our most popular designs, and we released our second collection like just a few months ago. So this is like scalable. So I want to, scale this up, get more funding, get more designs. So right now we have like 11 designs that you can just buy, in any size. And that's great. So when people email me and they're like, hey, I need something in Germany tomorrow, I don't have to like pull an all-nighter. I can be like, here's our ready to wear collection. Like we can express ship it to you. Or sometimes I'll modify that, like take one of our ready to wear vest or jeans and throw some Striper, the band just called me and they needed something like right away. So I was like, how about I just add some like yellow accents or paint to like our ready to wear piece? And they really liked it. Um, that opens up the possibilities of having a scalable business enterprise. And then I have passive income, and then I can hire more assistants to help me sew. I can book with the custom stuff. Like I'm not a businesswoman, like I'm an artist. So it's been hard to teach yourself how to be a businesswoman. And in a subjective creative field, it's really hard to tell like how long things take. So like, oh, write a song. How long is that going to take you? It's not like, budgeting hours is really difficult, especially when you're dealing with subjective taste. So if somebody's like, I want changes on this or whatever, I'll budget a certain amount of time. And then people email me that are like really important, and want something for a WWE pay-per-view. And I have to work them in. I would be dumb not to. And I started thinking about scheduling myself like a doctor's office. So how do they account for sick patients coming in when you make an appointment 6 months in advance? And how do you account for like flu season when there's going to be a lot of sick patients? So I started padding the schedule when I anticipate there's going to be like big events or something where people are going to be like panicked and wanting rush orders. And so like if they want the turnaround faster, then like they can pay a little more and I hold slots for them. So that way, when I'm taking rush orders, I'm not eating up my nights and weekends and never sleeping and not enjoying life, even though I'm in cool places. It's like for a while there, I was like traveling all over the world and then work. It was like I bought this really cool hotel so that I could work for 18 hours. Like, what?
Yeah.
Like if I worked for 8 to 10 hours, like that would be great. But, there's no point in me going cool places if I don't have time to enjoy it. And so learning to say, no, I'm already booked, and not being scared that you're going to lose a client, learning to pad your schedule with a reasonable amount of like open slots to anticipate the kind of chaos that's going to get thrown at you, and padding the amount of time that you tell your customers is going to take. The other thing is like if everybody gives me deadlines, there's no flexibility, and that's a nightmare. So it's like I'm starting making people pay if they want a deadline, then you get a little bit more. If I can give you like a range of like 2 weeks or something, then that's our normal pricing, which is great because it gives me like flexibility. If this one took a little bit longer yesterday, I don't have to stay till 2 a.m. to finish.
Yeah. Well, I think you make a great distinction too, because so sorry if we're doing you as a businesswoman, if that, because I know like I feel the same way, like even just writing wrestling themes or just any kind of music I do, it's kind of like I always got kind of like sick to my stomach when people are like, well, what's your brand? You got to be branding and all this, all the kind of like advertising lingo that I'm just like, no, I don't want to think about that. This is art. This is creative. It's I mean that's a struggle, I think, because unfortunately so many people are like, no, you got to treat it like it's a brand. But that's awesome. I mean, that's actually really cool advice too. Like, yeah, I never thought about that you treat it like a doctor's office where you're like, yeah, some days are going to be busy, and then just I think that's really inventive and awesome, actually.
It
Um,
took me years of what not to do to come up with that idea. But I mean, Ehud would do the same thing for your, if you have a big event coming up that you're going to have to write a lot of music, just like double the amount of time you allot that from what you think you're going to need. Like,
oh yeah. I
asked filmmakers about that too, and they were like, yeah, double it. Double it.
I mean, I used to pull because when I was doing it for the federation, they would have like a monthly event, and then it'd be like, okay, we're gonna need like 5 new pieces for these guys, and of course I would wait till the last minute because it's just the way I am, and so I'd be again pulling an all-nighter on a Friday night, like, and then like I was always kind of like, I don't think there's as much leeway with stage clothes or wrestling gear, but with music I was like, okay, there's event ready and then there's release ready. And so event ready might not have all the parts in it, but it has enough of a part where it actually works. And then release ready is when I actually finish it.
Right.
And so yes, I had a lot of like half finished things that people were coming out to, but they still sounded okay. So I was like, yeah, all right, cool.
Well, that happens with us sometimes too, because like I'm working remotely and I just send people measuring charts. And a lot of times it's like, okay, they don't measure themselves right. Or you're working with totally different materials. So like the same measurement on a material that has slightly less stretch, like 20% less stretch, is going to fit or feel different. So, yeah, I got it to you by your deadline, but you might need some like adjustments. They're like, hey, can you take this in half an inch? Can you
Yeah.
give me more room in my knee after they wear it? So I'm like, this is fine. Like, this is a normal part of the process, but I can't promise that all your changes are going to be done by the event. Like, just get through the event and then we'll
Yeah.
make it.
Oh, okay. That's well,
But
I was gonna ask too, like when you go to see your bands you've worked with, do you ever are you ever like, okay, I really just want to go to the concert, hang out and have fun, and they're like, actually, can you do a couple adjustments for us?
oh, 99% of the time I go visit the shows, they work me to death. So I'm bringing the sewing machine and they're like, oh yeah, this stud came off. Like I ripped this when I did a splits on stage, and like this needs to be blacker, like no, it's like any amount of time I'm at the show, they're filling up. I will cut it off at some point too if they start being ridiculous. I'm like, look, let me just have a beer with you now and I can take this home. I'll mail it to you tomorrow.
Yeah.
But no, there's times where it's like, Jesus, get the band on stage, because they'll give me stuff to work on. And then I have to obviously finish it before they need to put it on. And
Yeah.
I'm like still sewing at the like opening band set, but I'm a professional with that. It's kind of exciting and fun. And also like setting up the sewing machine in weird places on road cases, and knowing what to put in the road kit was another like what not to do. It's like one time I remember I went out to sew Kreator's gear and I like broke a machine needle, and I hadn't thought to put machine needles in the road bag, and I'm like, what do I do? And another time it was like I don't have a rivet all, and I was like, anyone got like a spare nail somewhere, that could use. So now I have all the like things that I have needed at one point in a little case, and I just throw that in the road kit and glue. If I don't have time to sew something, just glue it and then sew it after.
Yeah.
Like, but
And well, I was gonna ask too, like when you're so when someone comes to you with an idea, I mean, have there been any, and I'm sure there's been a few, but you don't have to name them all, but any examples of like where someone has come with you with an idea for gear and it's kind of challenged you, creatively, and therefore like, the end result ended up being something, maybe outside of the norm of what you normally were doing, but like you excelled at anyway.
yeah, I was actually just thinking about that because do you know the band Power Glove? They do like
Yeah.
video game metal. Yeah, so we made like these giant stage armor sets for them. That's not normally something I do. Like I did it with Kung Fu Dykes, like, and with GWAR I did it, but they have a whole like latex molding sculpting shop, and that's not like that's like $10,000 of work, to
Yeah.
make those kind of things. But with Kung Fu Dykes, we kind of did this hacked together, cosplay before Warbler and Eva foam method, where I would find like Nerf guns and sand them down and paint them, and then add like LEDs and take found plastic objects and like cable tie them onto like a football shoulder pads, and then you paint the whole thing and rig it with lights so that it looks cool. So I did that for their armor, and I think it turned out really cool. And they just asked me to make some new stuff, but I was thinking it might actually be a good idea to start experimenting with like Eva foam and stuff. But I feel like that stuff takes way too much time for it to be cost effective for people to play who play metal for a living, or people who wrestle for a living, because I can't outprice my market, which means I can't put like $1,000 worth of hours and $600 of materials into a stage piece, because that guy doesn't have $2,000 to give
Yeah.
me to make this possible. So I have to figure out how to do it within like $200 to $500 budget on most items, kind of thing. And I mean, I take payment plans and stuff like that, but I can't do too much of that, or like I don't make enough money to make it worth the time that it takes.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Yeah.
So,
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, I think I've seen those. Yeah, I've seen those outfits on the Power Cool guys. So I didn't realize you had made them. All right, that's awesome. Yeah, I was gonna ask if when you were doing the stuff with GWAR, if you were involved in the costuming at all, or because I, like you said, I knew they had their own kind of shop that they set up, but I wasn't sure if you were involved on the design
yeah,
side.
they put me to work. So like when they asked me to be in the band, um, uh, Matt McGuire and I came up with the concept for Vulvatron, and he did some digital sketches, and we sort of developed the look of the stage armor back and forth. We all came up with a name from a list in meetings. Someone had written Pam on the list. So that was sort of like it was either Vulvatron or Pam, but that was a running joke. But like then like I don't know how to do the whole sculpts that they do for the effects, makeup and stuff. So they did a life cast of me and sculpted all the stuff. But then I was in there like every day till like 2 a.m, like painting layers of latex on it and sewing latex onto. You have to use like neoprene, like wetsuit material, because they've also done the like what not to do, finding materials that just rot and decay with like daily stage blood, getting
Yeah.
wet. So you have to use fabric that's designed to get wet and not deteriorate. And yeah, the wetsuit fabric is great, but no sewing machine will sew that kind of neoprene. You need like a special machine. And I didn't believe it till I tried it on all my industrial machines. I was like, whoa, what sorcery is this? The needle just kind of bounces out. You gotta sew that by hand. And then I came up with the makeup and I made the wig, and like I think it was several months of all-nighters before we debuted that gear at Riott Fest. And I was also going to the gym because I had to wear like no pants on the
Yeah.
stage. So I'm like, don't need anything jiggling down there.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny. I've always been curious about the temperature inside those GWAR costumes, because I know when I saw GWAR in Rhode Island back in, again, 99, I remember it was a crazy show, and someone had knocked my glasses off in the middle of the show, so I was like blinded, like I couldn't see anything.
Oh,
And
no.
then they came out for the encore, and for some strange reason, I guess maybe they were just overheating, so Dave Brockie had taken off all the odorous stuff, and he's just there in his tidy whities, sweating his face off, and then he staged over from the stage right on me. So I'm like, maybe so I see this huge man coming at me, and
That's awesome. That's so Dave.
yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, latex is hot because it doesn't breathe, but there's not very much of it on my costume. So I was fine. I mean, it's like a winter tour and you're playing in Edmonton with no dressing room. Like that's a problem. You're basically walking around in sub-zero temperatures in a bikini.
Yeah.
And some of the guys have really hot costumes. Like I remember Blothar was complaining about his shoulder pads were a pain in the ass and really hot. So they, like after a while, if you get frustrated with it, the costume team will like redesign, things. But man, those things smell bad after like a day off in a hot area. Put them all in a wardrobe case and they just sweaty plastic, like baking in the heat. Like I remember hurling a couple times opening the wardrobe case because we all had like 3 jobs.
Oh man. Well, and as kind of a segue from the GWAR thing, I was kind of curious, like, are you currently involved with any bands, or do you have
Yeah.
anything else going on musically?
So I'm singing for a band called Kreator in Ireland. They pretty much like invented folk metal like 20 years ago, but are still rolling strong. I just did a gig with them in Dublin, and I was on the first single they released for the new album called The Hawthorne.
Oh,
And I'm
okay.
gonna be on their new album too. But they're great. I played my first gig with them on 70,000 Tons of Metal in 2020. So we played a festival gig in 2020 in Mexico, and we had such a good time playing together that I started taking Irish traditional singing lessons. with the Online Academy of Irish Music. And I mean, they're a metal band, but like a lot of the stuff I do is like influenced by Irish music. And I'm a rock singer and a metal singer. So I was just kind of making that up. And then now I've actually been studying that technique for 2 years, and it's really improved the other areas of my singing. Plus, they're super fun. I love them. And we hopefully will be playing a lot of festival gigs this year. And then I have a project called The Burned Over with a really talented guitarist named Mark Donnells in Atlanta. People probably know him from Yacht Rock Review, the Yacht Rock band. And I made them like leisure suits, and it was awesome. And we had a really good time. And he wanted to start a metal band. So we call it Baffa Metal. It's kind of technical, and it's all about like the spiritualism era in the early 1900s, and you know, like Ouija boards and levitating tables and things. And it's a fun theme, and I'm really proud of the music. But we only released 3 songs so far. And then I have a project with my boyfriend Johan Soderberg from Amon Amarth, but I can't release the name yet. But it kind of sounds like Candlemass. It's like Swedish Doom.
Oh,
and
awesome!
I'm really, really proud of it. And
That's amazing.
so yeah, I'm doing a lot of ends all the time. Just mostly been studio projects over, you know, the COVID
Yeah,
time.
yeah, I know.
And I had a live band here in Virginia called Fulton Avenue, but our drummer passed away.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
We have been unable to find someone who can fill his shoes, really. I'm also jamming with a really talented Brazilian guitarist named Silas Fernandez. But that band doesn't have a name yet either. We just jammed a couple times and wrote some songs. So like, you know, it's fun I like to put my eggs in a lot of different baskets, because musicians are flaky, and, you know, also like you never know what's going to take off, or if a drummer's going to die, or if you're going to like, you know, not get along with the guys, or people have other priorities and have a kid or something. But CrewCon's great. That's definitely my main live band lately. And I'm looking forward to playing. We were supposed to be playing in France like last weekend, but we were supposed to be playing at like Versailles at a pagan metal festival, but it got canceled due to Omicron. So I don't know the new rescheduled dates, but we're still gonna play in France.
Good.
So,
That's awesome. It sounds amazing. And I know I've been kind of like throwing in these weird anecdotes and stories and things that I actually have an Amon Amarth anecdote. Whereas so my old band played at the 2001 Milwaukee Metal Fest.
Oh, hell yeah, that's awesome.
And it was really stressful. I mean, I always was like, you know, the organizers of that thing were always kind of crazy, but like I remember, you know, everybody, you know, they hold you to time. You know, you have 20 minutes, boom, get in there, get on stage. And I remember I'm getting ready. I'm already nervous as hell anyway. And then someone grabs me and is like, "Hey, we need you to come out here for a second." I was like, "What? Well, I'm about to go on stage." Like, no, come here. And it was, I guess, Amon Amarth were playing a little bit later, and their stuff got stuck at the border.
Oh no.
So that, you know, so they're like, and I felt bad because they're like, "Oh, what kind of gear do you have? Can they use it?" I'm like, "Well, you're more than happy to use it." And I was like, "I've got a 7-string or whatever," and they're like, "Oh, we don't usually use 7 strings." I'm like, "I'm really sorry," and I felt bad, but then it's just like I was being like very quick. I'm like, "This is what I have. I don't know," and I was freaking out.
Right.
Yeah. So I think they ended up using our other another friend of mine's band's gear, but yeah, that was my one time hanging out with Amon Amarth.
Yeah, that happens so much, especially the fly-in gigs for the festivals in the summer. You see everyone scrambling backstage to try to like borrow gear from everyone else. Like it's just that's a frequent occurrence. I feel bad for the people who have like really specific gear, you know?
Yeah.
Like
yeah, that stuff I can't imagine. Well, I didn't really have like any other real questions. I think we covered everything. And you know, I'm really I'm really thankful that you agreed to do this, because I was kind of nervous. I'm like, she's kind of a big deal now, so I don't know.
Well, thanks for asking. No, I mean, like I really like podcasts too. So like I always actually like finding new podcasts to listen to, and I checked your stuff out and it seemed like you interview some interesting people and you're all professional and stuff. So I'm honored you asked. I'm on.
Sort of professional.
I'm honored you asked me.
Oh, thank you. Well, yeah, I look forward to seeing the more wrestlers and more bands that you're dressing up, and hopefully one of these days I'll have an idea. Once I'm back playing, I'll hopefully have an idea I can float to you for some cool stage gear, so I can look cool for once on stage, which has never happened before. So
I'll promise not to soak it in Watain blood before.
Okay. Okay.